You ready down here? Ready down here. I'd like to call to order the March 10th, 2016 Board of Adjustment meeting. Roll call, please.
Hanson, absent. Stonebarger? Here. Stein?
Here.
Shriver?
Here.
Dolly?
Here.
McGuire, is that McGuire?
Here.
Albertson?
He's here.
Voting Albertson.
All right.
Thank you. First item on the agenda is the approval of the February 18th, 2016 minutes. Can I get a motion and a second? Motion by Mr. Dolly, second by Mr. Stonebarger. All in favor say aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Second item on the agenda is the applicant Ryan Warner, permit number 16547, seeking a conditional use to operate an in-home transfer print business out of a multifamily dwelling located at 303 First Avenue Southwest, Apartment 5.
Thank you. Again, as stated, an applicant seeks approval to operate a transfer printing on clothing, e.g. t-shirt business from his apartment located in the R2A Single Family Attached Residential District for 211804, 211603, and 211403 of the zoning ordinance and contingent upon compliance with the home occupation and home occupation standards and specific rules governing conditional uses. Applicant proposed to utilize part of his leased apartment, less than 25% of the dwelling unit, approximately 743 square feet of the living area for business use. Applicant has received and will comply with the ordinance requirements for home occupations for the definition in chapters 2170. Basically, that's it.
Thank you for the
I'll let
record.
the record show that Mr. Jason Hanson has arrived.
Thank you. With that, I'll open the public hearing on this matter. Before we get going, I've talked to, when I saw this, I saw home occupation in a multi-residential facility, which I didn't realize we allowed. Our home occupations in the past has always been in a single-family residence. And as I looked through, I thought, why did they, why, when we wrote this, why did we do this? The reasoning was, it's always been designed for a single-family unit, not a multifamily unit, but we do have many single-family units in the R3 multifamily zone. So the reason that R3 is opened up for home-based occupation, it wasn't because we encourage them in a multi-unit facility. It's because we have single-family dwellings in the R3 zone. I did make a call to Chip over at the fire department to say, what exactly, where are we at on this from a fire standpoint? What the explanation he gave me is anytime the usage changes in a building, that building now has to meet the current fire code, which this building currently does not. Is that still correct, Chip? This type of a building, as my understanding, would need to be sprinklered under the current fire code.
Chip Primus, Watertown Fire Rescue. Yeah, you're correct on that. When a use changes of a building, it has to be brought up to current code. And one thing about the residential R2, which is an apartment multifamily dwelling, it's the highest risk. 80% of the fatalities and loss happens in these types of occupancies. So the code is really protective on trying to mix that use up. I haven't seen it before, so we're very concerned with this application.
It's an interesting one because we want to do the right thing and try to make a person be able to run a business as easily as they can, but at the same time, we have to do our due diligence to make sure that we don't put anyone else at risk or them at risk if they happen to be in a facility, a multi-use facility like that when there's businesses in there. And it's not necessarily this business, it's any home occupation business that we've approved in the past, from travel people, realtors, gunsmiths. We've approved daycares. And when you think about it in a multi-use facility, not multi-use, but a multi-residential occupancy like that, you think something as simple as a music teacher. I just teach piano. Well, that's okay if you're in a single-family home, but if you're in a 6 or 12-unit apartment building, what would normally not be intrusive to to you in your own home is very intrusive when you're in there. And that's kind of from this board standpoint, that's the thing we have to think about more of long-term than short-term, but that's just my point on it. But public hearing is open if anyone wants to speak in favor or against the conditional use.
My name is Colleen Lindy. I gotta go back.
You gotta come up here.
On to.
You need to state your name, please, yeah.
My name is Colleen Wingy, and I am a vocational job coach, and I work with Ryan. I understand the sprinkler system and everything, but as far as like the multi-residential building, they all are people supported that live in there. There is 24/7 care there. You know, so it wouldn't be like he's gonna be doing this, you know, on his own and stuff like that. You know, be no different than running an iron and leaving the iron on, basically, because all it is a big one. There's no chemicals, because we're not doing the screen printing with them.
Do you work with, do you have a facility you work out of primarily?
I work out of the Johnson Building, not of Community Services.
Do they ever have a place where, like I talked to one person, I said, he can do all his design stuff there, but just the physical
Right.
transfer, is there any other place that Human Service Agency, any places like that have where they can go and do that part of it?
No. According to, you know, my supervisor, the goal is to get everybody self-sufficient and supporting themselves. That's a trend that's going nationwide. And this is something that Ryan has basically dreamed of doing, coming up with his own T-shirt sayings and printing them. The only thing is Ryan does need care. I mean, not like, you know, on a daily basis. I mean, his sister's here, she could probably tell you more than I can, but, you know, he's supported by his family, you know, staff. There's staff there 24/7, like I said, that never go to sleep. You know, it's not like they can sleep on the job.
Any opportunity for him to find another location, single-family home, duplex?
Again, he needs that supervision, you know, as far as the 24/7. And I mean, I don't, you know, in a single dwelling, or, you know, I don't know how that would work. I would have to probably say no.
Thank you. Any other questions for her while she's up there? Anyone else to speak on behalf or against the conditional use? I'm going to close the public hearing, ask for a motion and a second for discussion.
Chip was coming up to the microphone, I don't know.
Did you have any more to say, Chip?
Yeah, I guess the concern is multifamily dwellings, you know, like I say, that 80% of the fatalities and loss of property happen in these buildings, and, you know, we let one building do this, one person do this, then, you know, do we let all the other multifamily dwellings, you know, have businesses in them? That's a concern very much for the fire department.
And how much has the fire code changed in the last 20 years? That building was built in 1980, maybe, right around then.
Yeah, go ahead.
Well, it was probably about 4 or 5 years back when they required the sprinkler systems to be, it used to be 16 or more, and then it went down to 8 or more. And then by the national code, it went down to anything that's considered multifamily, that's 3 or more. The state of South Dakota modified that regulation a couple years back to be more than 5 units must be sprinklered, so.
And that's the Unified Building Code?
That's the IRC, IBC.
Okay.
International Building, International Residential.
And that's what we
Codes.
follow in our,
We follow the
in our
international
zoning and ordinances.
business code for this particular one, yeah.
Thank you. Did I have a motion and a second for discussion?
I'll make a motion for discussion purposes.
Motion by Mr. Stonebarger. Need a second. Second by Mr. Dolly. Discussion?
I would really like to be accommodative of this, but I don't really want to sacrifice the safety issue or the other residents either, so I cannot see where I could, in good conscience, vote for it.
I was around when we wrote this, and the intent of it was not in the multi-unit facilities. It was single-family dwellings by conditional use that happened to be in the R2 or the R3 area, so. Jill, do you have something?
We were just discussing here that it wasn't, I processed this and it wasn't clear to me that it was it's an actual group home that's supervised 24 hours a day. Okay, I didn't know that. So it may be something that you might consider tabling. Maybe we could do a little more research, and this might be allowed as an accessory use.
I'm going to ask if you can come back up here. I was under the interpretation it was an apartment building. It was who owns the building? It was Mary Gebhardt owns the
Yes,
building. It's
I
not
think-
owned by Human Service or
No,
anything like that.
We just have people that rent from them.
So she's an independent person,
Mm-hmm.
just like any other landowner out there, and you rent all 6 apartments from her?
Yes.
And it's supervised by one of your people, not just his apartment, all 6 apartments.
Right.
No different than one of the buildings on First Avenue.
Right.
I would be open to a table on that so we can discuss it further, because it's, we need to look into our code to, you know, what we don't want to have happen is that because we let one multi-unit facility have it, all of them are going to be painted with the same brush. But this is a little different. If it's a group home, which to me is more of a commercial-like exposure, we need to find out who's managing it, how they're managing it, and you know,
you
if
have-
Human Service came in and said, hey, we do this is our business, and these people are under our supervision, and they're going to do some things as the way you're saying it, I might even want to stop over there and take a look at it myself.
You know, and one of the things is there's staff there 24/7. Plus, as far as my job as a job coach, I will be there with him when he is processing those shirts and stuff like that. And it's not going to be an 8-hour-a-day type.
The way the letter read, I thought, well, family, job coach, I thought, well, somebody just spends the night there, family or something
yeah,
that was
but
there,
we
but
just-
it's actually a group home facility.
Right, right. They have one overnight staff there and I think 1 or 2 during the day. And then we would be there, you know, like when we're job coaching them.
Would you be opposed if we tabled it until our next meeting so we could take a look at a little closer
I don't
at it?
have a
to-
problem with that, I don't think.
Like I said, what we just don't want to do is if it's just an everyday apartment building, there's nothing that stops anyone from coming in to operate a daycare out of a 2-bedroom apartment with 24 units. This may be a little different, and I think we would like to look at it further.
Colleen, is this regulated by this, are you guys working for the state, or is it just an independent?
The department rehab is backing him. We are working through Voc Rehab, where they are helping him to set up the business, as far as that goes. And then they pay us for working and coaching with him and training him in the position.
So is there any rules with that housing there that say they can't do it, or they?
Nope. When we talked to Voc Rehab gentleman, he basically said, you know, whatever you can do to get it, you know, I mean, basically to set it up, you know, if we have to rent a building, which it's more than a hobby. I mean, it's something that he's gonna try to make a living off of, but it's something that he has wanted to do. And, you know, then that's what Voc Rehab does, is helps fulfill the dreams and stuff like that and give them, you know, the ability to do things.
Clean?
Is there any possibility of the Greg getting you the room within that garage area? I mean, could they carbon off a little area section of that for him to do his business out of? Not his business, but the printing part.
Yeah.
I mean, so if we're giving him permission to, you know, operate his business out of his room, like doing his design work, layout and all that, but then the physical process actually happens in that garage or whatever accessory structure, whatever it is there.
Yeah, I don't know if that is storage units or not.
I'm not sure, again, I'm not sure if we use that at all. I don't think we do.
How big is the heat press, and what's it draw for amperage? Is there an automatic shut-off on it, or?
What I have checked into, there is one that I remember seeing that it'll shut off after so much time. As far as amperage, I just know 110. as, you know, that I've checked into.
Well,
but I
most
don't
of
know.
most
Yeah.
household
Right,
circuits are
you
like
know, but
15
it-
amp. If this is a 20 amp
Yeah.
press, that would be exceeding,
Okay.
you know, the capability, so.
And that would be
it'd kinda
something
nice
that I
to
could
know.
look into a little further also.
Okay.
We're kind of new at this too so.
I think we'd use a motion to table it so we can investigate it a little further. I was under the understanding it was just a standard everyday apartment building that one person that you supervised was renting one of those 6 apartments. It's almost, we'll look into our zoning a little bit to see, have we just been putting the group homes in a standard R3? Or should they, because of the amount of supervision, should they be given more leeway than a standard apartment building? And if that's so, we'll have to wordsmith it in our ordinance to contain it, if we could.
I have a question for Chip. Would if the actual physical operation of the machine, the press, is in the garage,
That would be perfect.
okay, you're okay with that then?
Yeah.
Okay.
One of the concerns was too, you know, with extra, when you're printing stuff, you have your material that you're printing on your t-shirt stuff, you get boxes of t-shirts, it's a fire load issue that, but it would be just perfect in that garage.
Well, if we get a motion and a second to table, we can investigate it further and come back with some better answers.
Motion to table.
Motion by Mr. Stonebarger, second by Mr. Dolly. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Item number 3 is the applicant Anza Incorporated, permit number 16548, seeking a conditional use to allow for the manufacturing of small technological products in a C3 highway commercial district at 1404 9th Avenue Southwest.
Well, you about did it for me already again. Again, as requested, light manufacturing is listed conditional use in the C3 Highway Commercial District per city zoning ordinance, section 21.280314. Such conditional use may be approved subject to compliance with 210202 and definitions and other conditions the board may deem necessary. Again, this is very light manufacturing. It's a real small. I'll let him explain what the part is, but.
I have one
Little
question
box
before he
with
comes up.
6 of them in there.
This reminds me of the Mintronic one that we approved, that now there's no room for parking and they've kind of intruded on neighbors and are having problems. What is the parking requirements for that structure and how do we determine them?
He currently has a requirement for 13 parking, and it's got way more than that on the site right now. And you're gonna
After-
have that come up for again in a future question, because actually, we're gonna be back with a building addition on this already.
That's what I was gonna say. I saw that building addition. How many there's only 13 parking spaces in
Oh,
that
no, it's
entire
only
lot?
13 required now.
Required. How many do you think he,
I think there's like, when he does the new one,
yeah, when he's all done, I mean, it looks
If I
like
can
you can
count-
go
I can
back
put a
into
count
that
of this.
grassy area.
there was like 12 alone here, you got 9 here. They're gonna do the addition here, and they may have to take and depends on what kind of parking they're gonna end up on this side, they may have to enclose part of that area there. But even with the addition, the site will have much more than enough required area for the meet.
Do
the
they,
parking requirement.
they intend not having their employees park on 14th there? It's always frustrating when you see McDonald's and places like that. They meet all the parking requirements, but their employees park on the street, which crowds the streets.
Do you get a lot of customer-based people that come in and see you guys, or mostly just your employees anyway?
I'm Jim Hill with the Anza Company. The product that's manufactured is specifically restricted in its ability to see what they do. It's restricted by the Department of Trade or Department of State. It's subject to severe patents and secrets when it's being constructed. In fact, customers cannot come into the building when it's being built. So we have to meet someplace else. So the parking will be strictly employees. And there's no reason to park on 14th Street.
And I
Does that
open,
answer your question?
no, I think it does. Our main concern was, is are you gonna get to the point where your overflow parking is pushing onto the neighbors. We've had that happen at another location, and I know there's
We
some
have
hard
no plans
feelings.
for that.
Good. Anyone else for the open? Anyone have any questions while Jim's up here? With that, I'll close the public hearing, ask for a motion and a second for discussion.
I'll make a motion.
Motion by Mr. McGuire. Have a second? Second by Mr. Dolly. Any other discussion on it? Any other questions? Parking was the only question I had. It's nice to see that develop out there for long term.
Just like with a waiver right to protest for curb and gutter sidewalk, stuff like that, or?
Yeah, we could,
That would be better to be addressed when we do that next part.
okay,
For
when we do the building.
addition.
Rather
This
than the
internal thing is
conditional
just a
use?
use thing. It really doesn't
Okay.
trigger those things.
Okay.
When we do the addition, it does actually trigger all those things for
Okay.
your direct consideration.
We'll remember it. We'll
I
remember
just
that.
soon wait until the next one.
Okay. Any other questions for discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Old business number 1, Josh Susie.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Josh, come on up. Old business, Mr. Sushi. What did I do? Oh, here we go. If you guys remember, on April 8th, 2015, Mr. Sushi came before the board and made a request for I think it's, I'm gonna find it here. For a variance to build was it attached or detached?
It's considered attached.
Attached garage, considered attached because it's within the 10 feet for this room here. At that time, we noticed that there was a big right-of-way, and the board had asked him to go out and try and see if he could get the neighbors to go in cahoots with him and go for a vacation to part of that property. Well, none of them wanted any additional property or any additional taxes or anything else, so now he's back before the board, hopefully to get a final either yes or no as to what he can do here.
All we have in ours is just from the minutes. Was there, I didn't see it in my packet, I didn't see any actually of his buildings, what the building looked like or where it was gonna be placed. Do we have that up there anywhere?
Nope. I don't know if we can find it quick or not, Joe.
Can you bring us up to speed? If I remember right, he was gonna be, what direction is the left on the screen?
To the
Towards,
left.
toward 12th? He was gonna be right on that lot line, if I remember right.
I believe it was gonna be like 2 foot off or something like that.
But the right-of-way was 30 extra feet, something like that?
Yeah, that's a large right-of-way, so we're trying.
80-footer.
Yep.
None of the neighbors wanted a vacation. They weren't interested in that, huh?
No, most of they're all rentals around there, so nobody wanted to have any extra taxes.
We wouldn't have raised their taxes.
Oh, you found that awful quick. Did you have it up? I did. Oh. So, yeah, we were looking for, 1.5 on both sides of the garage. on each
Were there
property.
sidewalks on that side?
Not currently.
So we need a waiver right to protest.
Go back to that diagram, Joe. That 40 foot at the top there, is that from the edge of the garage to the asphalt, or what is?
I'm assuming that's half the street.
It looks like, see where it says asphalt, that 40-foot almost is right to the, how wide's that right away?
I believe it's 80, but I'm gonna have to pop back to the other screen for just a second and measure it. Where's my measuring here? Yep, it's 80.
Conventional right-of-way in a residential area like that, we'd do 60.
60, 66.
60 or 66. He's got about a 20 feet extra right away, 10 feet on each side. Is that a side yard setback for him, or is it, he's on a corner, so it'd be front yard?
It's a front, yep.
Used as a side, though. Normally, we'd have 9 in a side, 25 in front.
Yeah, his should actually be 25 to the west, 25 to the south, 6 to the east, and 6 to the north.
How wide is that lot?
25 feet.
Squeezes you down also.
So with the required setbacks, you wouldn't have any buildable area on that lot at all?
No.
And I think when we looked at it, we were okay with where everything was, but we'd be much more comfortable if that right-of-way was vacated, because then the encroachment was only a few feet instead of, what's the total encroachment based on how it sits right now?
23.5
20,
to the
23
west.
feet, versus it would have been 13, and
4.5 to the east.
when we look at it normally used like a side yard like that, it would have been, got him kind of close. But what do you need us to do on this? Do we need to open a public hearing? Actually, we didn't, public hearing's already been opened and closed. So we would just need a motion and a second for discussion to move forward from there, because it hasn't been re-notified to the neighbors, so we wouldn't do it as a public hearing.
You'd need a, Pat, you'd need a motion to take it off the table and then a motion to
Okay.
do your.
So it is on the table. So I'll ask for a motion to take it off the table to discuss it.
I'll make a motion to take it off the
Mo-
table to discuss it.
Motion by Mr. McGuire. Have a second, take it off.
Second.
Second by Mr. Stonebarger. All in favor, say aye. Opposed? All right, it's off the table, so.
So Ken,
Discussion?
so to be clear then, for those of us that were at that meeting, and for the reasons that were just addressed relative to the setbacks and everything else, obviously the board was not comfortable in granting a variance at that point. Nothing has changed now, other than the applicant was not successful in getting the property, the surrounding property vacated. Other than that, nothing has changed from the first time that it was in front of the board, in front of this board.
I wouldn't say that we weren't in agreement to granting the variance. We'd have been more comfortable if we could have got a vacation of the right-of-way, because then
Would have grabbed 20 more feet and it would have
Yeah.
been, 21.5, but
he would have got half of the 20
10, yeah.
feet. He would have got 10 feet, so it would have been a 10-foot encroachment. But problem here is you got a 25-foot lot. If it was a 50 or 75-foot lot, you wouldn't even consider that much of a variance. But in this case, it's a 25-footer.
After dealing with the small lots at Lake Compesca and allowing our variances, it seems how this is a 25-foot lot, there's not a heck of a lot we can do with it. I wouldn't have a problem with it.
Josh, did you talk to the people out there to get this variance? Did you talk to them, or did Ken or somebody else?
Yeah, it's Matt Gilhaney on the other two sides, and across from me is then also a guy that rents that house.
And did you
you
talk
spoke
to
with him
him
personally, though, right?
personally,
You
though?
went out and asked these people.
Right.
I didn't. No, he did.
You did personally, but they just didn't want to do it?
Yeah, right.
Because they thought it would be a cost to them, do you think?
Right, it is a cost for them, correct.
We'd give them back the land, but then it would increase their lot size, which could have it be,
Now, Josh should be willing to vacate just his property if that's something the city would do.
And I would pay more taxes on just my part, vacate my property.
But then now that's up to you guys whether you want that street to jog from 80-foot right away down to a offset 70-foot just in front of him, so.
we normally try to do a block or two at a time, so we don't,
But it's just a gravel road right now.
yeah. Otherwise, we run into like the one we did on Ingalls up there, that one end of the block was one width and one was the other, and when they eyeballed the garage, they were on the wrong end of the block to put their garage there. So, any other questions for Mr. Susi? I'll ask for a motion in a second.
Yeah.
I'll make a motion.
Motion by Mr. Stonebarger,
Second.
second by Mr. Albertson. Any other discussion?
Otherwise, there's no buildable area on his lot whatsoever, so.
Correct. With that, we'll vote. All in favor, say aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Any other items, Ken?
Nope, I'm done.
Need a motion to adjourn for the Board of Adjustment meeting? Motion by Mr. Stein. Second by Mr. Dolly. All in favor, say aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
Oops, I'm sorry. I'll cut you back there. I'm done. I'll quit tripping over it.
I'd like to point out this is Mr. Brink's last meeting. He's going to go be a civil engineer for the Department of Transportation. No, here in Watertown.
Yep,
Thank you for your service, Jeff.
it's been a
You've
pleasure.
done a nice job.
Thank you.
With that, I'll open the Watertown City Plan Commission Thursday, March 10th meeting. Roll call, please.
Hanson? Here. Stonebarger?
Here.
Stein?
Here.
Shriver?
Here.
Dolly?
Here.
McGuire? Here. Council Liaison Albertson? Here. And Arnold is absent. We have a quorum.
Thank you. First item on the agenda is the approval of the agenda. I need a motion and a second. Motion by Mr. Steiner. Stein. Second by Mr. Stonebarger. All in favor, say aye. Opposed, motion carries. Second item on the agenda is the approval of the minutes from February 4th, 2016. Can I get a motion? Motion by Mr. Stein. Second by Mr. Hanson. All in favor, say aye. Opposed, motion carries. Third item on the agenda is the Woods subdivision plat. Commission action. It's Resolution 2016-03.
Okay. I have the picture of the property up on the screen. Currently, it is a platted lot. The whole thing is platted as Lot 9 of Endress Industrial Edition. And it's currently zoned I-1 Light Industrial District. The lot is approximately 107,000 square feet and already has a building that's about 10,000 square feet conforming located on it. And what the applicant would like to do is they would like to split it into two lots, approximately where I drew this red line, having a lot on the east and a lot on the west. Normally, subdivisions like this can be done administratively, but in this particular case, we're bringing it to you because the lot on the west will be completely conforming, 80,728 square feet, but this lot to the east will be below our minimum 30,000 square foot area for the I-1 zone. It'll have 26,832 square feet. And since it doesn't meet our minimum area, we're bringing it to you. The reason that the applicant put the lot line where he did is there is a 20-foot wide utility easement that has storm sewer running in it. So he put that lot line right on the middle of that easement. So that's the reasoning for the location of that line.
So what would prevent him from moving that over and making two conforming lots? I mean, you could park on top of it, you could use it for whatever, but you
Yeah,
just couldn't build on it.
This line would have to be moved over approximately 17 feet to be a conforming lot. And if it was moved over 17 feet, the easement, it would be 7 feet, there wouldn't be an easement, but that'd be part of the setback. And then there'd be 20 feet that would be part of the easement. So then effectively it changes what would normally be a 20-foot side yard setback into a 27-foot side yard setback. So that's,
But it'd still be two conforming lots.
it would be, yes.
Okay.
So you lost me on that. If you move it over, it doesn't straddle the easement perfectly?
I have this picture opened. Right now, as we can see, these dashed lines are the easement, and it's straddling it perfectly in the middle, 10 feet of easement on each side. And in order to make Lot 2 have the required area, the line would have to be moved over 17 feet. So then, to get to the edge of this easement, it'd be 27 feet, which is 7 feet more than our required side yard. So
he would have a 27-foot side yard setback.
Yep.
Is there?
I don't know if there's a power line, but
Nope.
there's an existing sewer. Yep.
As far as access to the sewer, if it doesn't straddle it perfectly, does that have any ramifications on sewer access for either party? I mean, if the sewer was not on that lot at all, can he access it?
Well, the easement goes all the way to the road, so the utilities company can access the the easement no matter where the lot line is.
Are you talking about the adjacent property owner?
Yeah, I was talking about, do we like those lot lines to be straddled there? That way each person has access to that sewer. If you had a lot that the sewer didn't run across and the whole sewer easement was on your neighbors, you just can't reach in there to get to the sewer across his property, can you?
No, I mean.
So there's an advantage to keeping the easement on both lots.
Yeah.
So has that building already got sewer? And if so, where's it go?
Yep, yeah, Chip behind me said that the building that's already there does have sewer and a sprinkler system in it. So it has sewer
And does that
water.
go to that easement, that sewer?
I'll turn on the sewer real quick and see. Looking at it, it probably does connect to this sewer main that's this blue line that just showed up on GIS.
Which would lead me to believe we wouldn't want to shift the easement on, he's going to want some of that easement on his property, I would think, so he could service his sewer.
Could we separate the lots, make them both compliant, and give the guy access to the sewer? Rather than making a non-compliant lot?
You could just give the west lot an easement 20-foot wide or whatever the sewer easement is.
Luke Muller, the other option I think is what Mark was getting at is you could extend that easement all the way to the west edge of the property line. It does get to Jeff's point about this effectively being like a 27-foot setback, but at least it's a conforming lot, and really we don't have another reason to say no to say yes to it, I guess.
And the position of the building will have nothing to do with where the lot line is.
It's not gonna
It's
be
going to
any-
have to do with where the edge of the easement is,
It can't be any closer anyway.
than the edge of the easement, whether
So if
that's
sorry.
30 feet or whether it's 7 feet, correct? Whether that line moves either direction.
Yeah, you could build right up to the easement.
You could actually build closer to the easement with a conforming lot. Then if you do this smaller lot, you have to be 10 foot off of the easement where your building sits.
Correct.
I
Because
think it would be better
currently
the
with
other
how
way.
they're requesting it, the 20-foot setback would be, there'd be the 10 feet to the easement, then 10 more feet before you could have the edge of the building.
He'd be better off to make it a compliant lot, and then he could build 6 inches from that easement, or, the minimum distance from the easement, and he'd still be 20 feet from the edge of the lot line.
But you would still at that point say to extend that easement all the way to the west edge of this property. So if you move this property line, how many feet was it, Jeff? 17 feet? It would be an oversized easement, but at least then the west property owner would have access to it.
He'd have 3 feet of that easement would still be on the west owners, probably.
You still want enough easement to be on the sewer line, so if they ever do gotta go in there and dig, they got room to make a trench and throw the dirt and everything else. That's part of the purpose right now for it being 10 feet on either side. So if it's an actual construction easement, they got a place to put their material without going on the private property.
Yeah, I would think the easement would always stay exactly as it is. It would just be where the lot line goes. That makes sense. If you move the lot line over 17 feet, that way it's a compliant lot. Each property owner still has part of that easement on their land?
If you move it over 17 feet, this 20-foot easement would be completely on lot
Okay.
2.
Expand the easement
Yeah.
far enough to-
Yeah,
So
like,
instead of having a 20-foot easement, you'd have a 37-foot easement, is what you'd have.
No, 27. 27-foot wide.
27-foot easement, you're right, sorry about that.
And we can modify the easement through with this board here in our motion?
Yeah,
Well, this-
your
we
motion
just gonna
can
vote
can
no
be
on
to
this?
have them come back with a compliant plat, and then if it is,
You're right. What we have to do is act on what we have.
Just
They're
say
really
yes or
not
no
here
on
to
this.
make a deal,
Right.
so.
yeah, and if they've come back with a
Mhm.
compliant lot, like you guys said, and like I said at the beginning, then we can approve it administratively, because it's just a lot line adjustment.
That makes better sense.
Nope.
Right, with that, I'll close the public hearing, ask for a motion in a second for discussion. Motion by Mr. Hanson. You guys must have nothing to do on this nice day. Second by Mr. McGuire. Any other discussion on this? We just don't get in the habit of putting non-compliant lots if we can help it. Otherwise, somebody else is gonna have to deal with a 25-footer. All in favor, say aye. Opposed? Aye. I didn't hear anyone in favor, so it was unanimous. Was that right? Okay. All right, so all members voted no. Motion fails. The conditional use, excuse me, the plat fails. Any old business or new business?
Nope, nope.
No executive session. I need a motion to adjourn. Motion by Mr. Stein, second by Mr. Dolly. All in favor, say aye. Opposed? Motion carries.